This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Hello, and welcome back to the GSMC Sports Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Alex Masford. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode and to be continuing to listen to the show. If you are a returning listener, we really do appreciate you. Before I start talking anything sports, I want to remind you all of a couple of things. First, please subscribe to the podcast on whatever podcasting app or website you are listening to this on. To do that, you can just go to our homepage and hit the subscribe button. If you're on Apple Podcasts, it'll be in the top right-hand corner with next to that plus sign that says subscribe. You want to subscribe to the podcast for a couple of reasons, but the main one being you get those alerts and those notifications on your phone, on your laptop, on your watch, on whatever you may be listening to this episode on, and you can always know when we drop a new episode of the GSMC Sports Podcast here at the GSMC Podcast Network. Again, please subscribe to the podcast so you can get those alerts and notifications, and that way you can never miss an episode and be one of the first people to listen to a new episode when we release it. Again, please subscribe to the podcast. We'd also really appreciate it if you could leave us a 5-star review or just a positive review on that same podcasting app or website on that same device. Just to give us a boost of confidence, to let us know that you guys are enjoying the content and discussion points and the structure of the show. And if you are, again, we would really appreciate it if you leave us a 5-star review or just a positive review in general on that same Apple Podcasts or Spotify or Podbean, whatever you might be listening to this on. Again, same thing, just go to the homepage and click leave a review. That would give us a big boost of confidence. Again, it would let us know that you guys are enjoying the structure of the show and everything about it. So that would be awesome if you could. And finally, if you could follow us on all social media platforms, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram is where you can primarily follow us. Over there, we can interact and pretty much talk about anything. Over on social media, we can talk about sports, we can talk about life, we're going to do some live tweeting of some big-time hockey games or baseball games when the season starts. Whatever it may be, all of those interaction needs can be found on social media. So again, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram is where you can primarily follow us, and we would love if you could do so. I hope wherever you are and however you may be listening, you and your family are happy and healthy during these extremely trying times in the world today. We have a fantastic show for you all today. Coming up later on in the show, at the very end of the episode, I want to break down the Brooklyn Nets, as I did in my last episode. James Harden now out potentially all the way to the playoffs, meaning that there is a chance that James Harden, Kyrie Irving, and Kevin Durant will have only played 7 total games together in this regular season. I'll tell you what that means for their playoff chances, as well as Anthony Davis is coming back to the Laker lineup this week. What could that mean for them? How far could they get up in the Western Conference standings with just AD before LeBron returns? I'm also going to be giving you another mock draft, the first 16 picks. It'll be my last mock draft before I give you the full 32-pick mock draft. Next week is obviously the NFL draft. We're about a little bit over a week out from it, so I will be giving you, like I said, my episode before the mock draft, which will be Wednesday. I will be giving you my full first-round predictions, all 32 picks. I won't just cut it off at 16 like I've been doing, but we will be giving you a 16-pick mock draft today. I also want to get into a rumored trade that someone might have leaked a screenshot to on somebody of the Green Bay Packers desk regarding Jordan Love and a team looking for a quarterback. We'll break that trade down as well coming up later on in the episode. But I want to start off, of course, with an article that I read from The Athletic discussing Mac Jones and the San Francisco 49ers. So, of course, for the past couple of weeks now, the number one story in the NFL draft has been, what is San Francisco going to be doing with the 3rd overall pick? Now, initially, all the reports were saying Mac Jones, and then around Justin Fields' second pro day, like I mentioned in my last episode, or 2 episodes ago, I should say, Justin Fields during his pro day, the odds on the Vegas line sort of switched in his favor, and he actually became the best odds-on favorite to be selected 3rd overall by the San Francisco 49ers. And again, he would be my pick if I was San Francisco. I think Justin Fields is the third best quarterback in this class, with Trey Lance is a close fourth. And I think the top 4 quarterbacks in this class, and at least in my opinion, all have the chance to be really, really good players. The guy who I don't think is that good in this year's NFL draft class, quarterback-wise, is Mac Jones. And now, after the dust has settled sort of through Justin Fields and Trey Lance's pro day, the reports of Mac Jones being the third overall pick sort of resurfaced again and sort of took over dominance as the main report of what the NFL media believes is going to be the third overall pick by San Francisco, Mac Jones. And there were some interesting quotes in this article from anonymous NFL scouts and anonymous QB coaches from the NFL, all about Mac Jones, Justin Fields, Trey Lance. Zach Wilson was another guy they were talking about. But Mac Jones really has this narrative out there that he is the most NFL-ready quarterback in this class, but maybe besides Trevor Lawrence. That he is the one that can come in, run a system, win now, and that's why Kyle Shanahan is obsessed with him, because Kyle Shanahan believes that his system that he's run throughout the years in Washington, Atlanta, and now San Francisco, Green Bay runs a Shanahan system that comes from LaFleur, of course. They believe that that system, and anyone who comes from the Shanahan tree, that system gives the quarterback all the answers to the defense, all the answers for the play, and pretty clearly lines out for them what they have to do each and every play. When Aaron Rodgers got to Green Bay, he wasn't necessarily, when Matt LaFleur went to Green Bay and brought in that Shanahan system, the first thing you notice is the run game. Aaron Jones' career completely takes off. It's an incredible zone run scheme system that has really athletic guards and tackles, and centers, really. I mean, they're all athletic, of course, they're NFL players, but really specifically the interior of the offensive line, specifically the guards, and also the center has to be a really mobile, athletic guy that can pull and do certain things to help the zone read run game system work. And, of course, San Francisco and Green Bay are two incredibly dominant run games with incredible backfields as well. Green Bay has the notable name Aaron Jones. San Francisco sort of does a running back by committee, but also Raheem Mostert is there as well. So that's how it improves your run game. For the passing game, it is thrived and really dominated by motion, movement, hitting guys in stride, finding players in open space, getting the ball to your playmakers. And it's a system that is supposed to hopefully get those guys open and open quickly so you can hit them in space and with movement quickly as well. It is a system that is supposed to be a one-read quarterback system. Hike the ball, find the option, you know who it's supposed to go to, get it there. And it's supposed to scheme everybody open. And it does do that. Guys who play in San Francisco, Green Bay, some of these other systems get open. Obviously, the passing games have thrived. And I'm not saying that Kyle Shanahan's system is bad or anything like that either. My point being is that system, while everyone says it's complicated, and there might be some complicated plays, because yes, it is dominated and usually used because of motion plays. There's a lot of motioning before the line of, before the hike even starts, before the play even starts. There's guys moving behind the line of scrimmage, the running backs, the tight ends, specifically the receivers as well. So it's complicated to down the playbook and really memorize that and everything. But once you get it down, it becomes this pretty, not as simple, but a complicated one-read system that's going to thrive when you get the balls to your playmakers, right? And I understand. Mac Jones was able to do that at Alabama. And this is what I want to talk about here for a little bit. Not a guy that they're not comparing Mac Jones enough to in the NFL media. Everyone wants to make the Tom Brady comparison for whatever reason. A lot of people making Kirk Cousins comparisons, Matt Ryan comparisons, and I think those are all very notable QB comparisons. I think Kirk Cousins is the best for Mac Jones when it comes to his ceiling. But a guy that he's not being compared to enough is a guy, Tua Tagovailoa, who was a quarterback prospect last year. Now, if you ask around the NFL media, it appears that most people believe that Tua Tagovailoa is not going to pan out the way he was supposed to. A lot of people this year believe that the Dolphins should have gone after Deshaun Watson before all the off-the-field things sort of happened. A lot of people said that they were going to take a quarterback, that they should still take a quarterback, they should explore other options. I disagree with that. I believe Tua Tagovailoa is going to pan out and be a really, really good quarterback for the Miami Dolphins, but Mac Jones comes from that system. So if the same NFL media that thinks Tua Tagovailoa isn't going to succeed in the NFL, but yet believes that Mac Jones is going to succeed in the NFL, yes, I understand Mac Jones is 6'3", and heavier than Tua Tagovailoa is, but I don't even think he has a stronger arm. I don't think he's more accurate. I don't think he's more mobile. And they ran two different systems at Alabama. This is my point. Mac Jones sat on the bench for years and years behind Jalen Hurts and Tua Tagovailoa, two guys that the NFL media believes within the next 2 years will be replaced by their current teams. If you look at mock drafts for 2022 and beyond, a lot of people have the Eagles taking a quarterback after this year, and a lot of people believe that if Tua doesn't show out this year, even though I believe he will, again, this is not my opinion, I think Tua Tagovailoa will be really good, but if he wasn't to pan out this year, a lot of people believe the Dolphins would look at a different direction if they weren't already doing that this offseason. So how would Mac Jones, the guy who's been sitting behind them for 3 years plus, be the guy who's going to make it out of that quarterback room? Again, the Shanahan system, San Francisco, that will help and everything like that. But when Tua was at Alabama, they had all those weapons, and that's all we talk about. Oh, the Alabama weapons. Jerry Jeudy was there, Henry Ruggs, Jalen Waddle, Devontae Smith. They ran a spread offense. They had 4 wide, sometimes Najee Harris in the backfield. Tua Tagovailoa would go from the shotgun and play point guard. Really similar to what the Arizona Cardinals do now in the NFL. Ton of empty backfield, besides maybe one running back next to the quarterback, ton of shotgun play, and really just letting Kyler Murray at Arizona and Tua Tagovailoa at Alabama distribute the ball to the playmakers that way. Give the quarterback, who's very accurate, very precise, throws with great anticipation, a ton of options to throw to, not to mention both of those guys dissect defenses really well as well, and they'll find the right guy to give it to. That's not what Mac Jones ran at Alabama, and that's what I want to impress on people. It was a different system with Steve Sarkisian. And yes, Tua did play under Steve Sarkisian for a little bit that season before obviously getting hurt. And yes, he was playing in also that kind of rhythmic motion offense Shanahan style. I'm not saying that the Alabama offense is a carbon copy of a Shanahan system. It's not. I think Shanahan has even more motion than the Steve Sarkisian offense does. But when you look at Steve Sarkisian's first year at Alabama, the same year Tua Tagovailoa broke his hip, there still was a ton of spread offense used in that. It wasn't just the motion plays and sort of what you see with Mac Jones now. The Steve Sarkisian system that Mac Jones ran this year when Tua Tagovailoa wasn't even there to begin with was all about motion plays, specifically when Jalen Waddle went out too. Look how many times Devontae Smith moves behind the line of scrimmage, cuts behind the backfield almost, and runs to a different spot before the ball's even snapped. That's to scheme guys open and things like that, and dudes were wide open for Alabama. And I'm not trying to take away from Mac Jones. Do I think he's an NFL player? Yes. Do I think he's the 3rd overall pick, though? No. And my point is Mac Jones, in my opinion, wasn't good enough to run a spread offense at Alabama. He had to run a Shanahan one-read-like system. They had to make it easy for him. And yes, we've heard about his football IQ, but I'm questioning it because, again, I understand that the SEC is the best conference in America, and everybody wants to say that, well, he played against the best, and he beat the best, and he had all the stats against the best, so he has to be the best, right? Traditionally, no. That's not really how it works in the NFL. To that, I would say, look at Trey Lance, because this is the guy that everyone labels as, the project quarterback in this year's draft class. Mac Jones has been labeled as, look at this guy, he's QB ready, he's win now mode, you can throw him into any system and run it right away. He's got 17 career college starts. Trey Lance has 17 career college starts, yet he, who is 17-0 as a college starter, 28 touchdowns, no interceptions his sophomore season, 11 rushing touchdowns, no fumbles, and also over 1,000 yards rushing on the ground, he's not ready yet. He needs to be developed. He needs to sit on the bench for a couple of years because of his lack of experience. And again, if you're playing against competition that you're going to beat by 40 no matter what, who cares what the competition is? Yes, the SEC is better than the ACC, but if you're going to beat anybody by 40 anyway, which is what Alabama traditionally does, who cares who you play? You're going to beat them by 40. There was no secondary in college football that could stop the Alabama receivers. There's no defensive line in college football that was going to stop Najee Harris this year or the Alabama offensive line, and there's no coach in the SEC who can outcoach Nick Saban. So when they win time in and time again and win by 40 points, the credit doesn't go to Mac Jones, folks. He's not the reason why they were winning a single football game last year. I thought Tua Tagovailoa at Alabama had won Alabama a couple of football games, had kept Alabama in some football games. An example of that, the game versus Joe Burrow at LSU, when it was Alabama-LSU in the regular season, before Tua had gotten hurt. Tua was also playing hurt in that game with a left leg injury. Both of them threw for over 500 yards, had 4 touchdown plus, incredible game. The game was over. Tua threw another touchdown to try to bring them back late. It obviously was all for naught. I didn't see Mac Jones do that. I saw Mac Jones throw to a lot of dudes who were schemed open by an incredible offensive coordinator in college football, Steve Sarkisian, who should probably be in the NFL, but now he's obviously the head coach at Texas. And I saw him completely dominate people who didn't know how to stop their system. But in the NFL, people are going to figure you out eventually. Not to mention, Mac Jones is a minus athlete. He's not a plus athlete. He can move a little bit. I would say Kirk Cousins and Jimmy Garoppolo are a better athlete than him. But if Kyle Shanahan wants to sit there and say, listen, I don't want a guy who's going to freelance. I don't want a guy who's not going to listen to me. I want somebody who in this system is going to just follow the plan. Because again, when Aaron Rodgers went to Green Bay the first year in Green Bay, he wasn't necessarily following the system. LaFleur thought he was freelancing a little bit too much. Aaron fully buys into the Matt LaFleur system this season, and he has the best year of his career, arguably, since 2011 and wins MVP. I understand it. The Kyle Shanahan system is one that has traditionally won a ton of games in the regular season, won Matt Ryan an MVP, maybe won Aaron Rodgers an MVP late in his career, got Kirk Cousins to get that huge mega million-dollar contract with the Minnesota Vikings. It does great things. And I'm not saying Mac Jones can't win in San Francisco. In fact, I think he would win in San Francisco because, again, I believe in the Shanahan system. I think it's a little overrated, but I do believe he would win in that. He could win 10 games next year as a rookie. Don't get me wrong, but it's not about winning games in the NFL. That's just a part of it. It's about winning the game. And Kyle Shanahan has now lost the game twice. He's blown the lead in the game twice because his quarterback has been limited. He hasn't been able to do it. And again, if you want to look at his ceiling, again, in my opinion, Mac Jones' ceiling is Matt Ryan. And again, Matt Ryan led the league in passing for 4 straight years, led the league in yards for 4 straight years, and led the league in completions for 4 straight years, just a number of completions, and also won an MVP. I don't know if Mac Jones is ever going to do that even on his best day. Again, sat behind Tua and Jalen Hurts for 3 years. 2 guys that the NFL media is already questioning if they're going to succeed in the NFL. I would disagree, but again, runs a different system because, in my opinion, he wasn't good enough to dissect defenses enough to run a spread offense, which is what Tua Tagovailoa ran in Alabama. So they had to simplify it and make it a one-read system for him. Now, the Shanahan system, in my opinion, is just a super uber fancy complicated version of a one-read system. They find the guy you're supposed to get the ball to, and you throw the ball. You throw it to the guy you're supposed to throw to. That's how it works as a quarterback in the Shanahan system. There's not a lot of options. There's not a lot of freelancing. It's very controlled, almost like military-esque of get it to this guy and get it there quickly. That's how it works. Can Mac Jones do that? Sure. But my point is any of these quarterbacks in this class can do that. Justin Fields can do that. Maybe he didn't do that in college like Mac Jones did. Teach it to him. That's why you're a coach. You're supposed to find the more talented guy and teach him your system. Don't pick your quarterback prospect with the 3rd overall pick based off system. Find a guy who can learn your system but is already uber talented, Kyle Shanahan, because you've seen now in 2 Super Bowls what your system gets you to, which it gets you to a lead at halftime in the Super Bowl. And that is awesome. Not many guys can say that about their system. That, hey, every time that I play and my quarterback is at least healthy and there, we win a ton of games and we go to the Super Bowl and we're even winning at halftime at the Super Bowl. That's what the Kyle Shanahan system has been able to do. But without that uber talented guy running that system, they haven't been able to win the Super Bowl, and that's the expectation now for San Francisco. They're not a playoff team. The expectation isn't to make the playoffs. The expectation is really to compete for that division. I know it's the hardest in the NFL. They don't necessarily have to win it, but they're a Super Bowl contender. They're supposed to be in that Super Bowl bubble. They're supposed to be in that, discussion of teams that we talk about who could be playing in February. And I don't know if San Francisco is going to be that team with Mac Jones. I think they can do it with Justin Fields or Trey Lance. I think Mac Jones is really, really limited. Let me know what you guys think about the Mac Jones rumors. Maybe I'm missing something. A lot of people seem to love this dude. I think he's going to win some games. But again, Mitch Trubisky won a lot of games in Chicago. Doesn't necessarily mean anything. I don't know if we'll ever see a signature Mac Jones win. Don't think we saw it in college. Don't know if we'll see it in the pros. But with some other guys, we've already seen it. All right, that's going to do it for this segment. On the other side of this short break, I want to talk about a potential leaked draft day trade between the Packers and Patriots and get into some reports about some teams who might be making some interesting moves during the NFL draft, like the Dolphins, Falcons, and Bengals. We're going to into all that great stuff right after this short break.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines, they got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
and we are back here at the GSMC Sports Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. Again, I am your host, Alex Masfer. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode and to be continuing to listen to the show. If you are a returning listener, we really do appreciate you. I just finished giving you my sort of, I don't want to say first take, but another take on the Mac Jones situation again. I'm not trying to say that Mac Jones isn't talented or didn't run a complicated system in Alabama. He did both of those things, but I believe his abilities are being overstated. And also, I just think he's a really limited quarterback, and I understand that Kyle Shanahan's system has, proven to get the best out of those quarterbacks, but I just think that if you paired the Shanahan system with a talented, more athletic guy like Justin Fields or Trey Lance, better things would happen than pairing that system with a guy who you can run the system with and you know what the ceiling is. You already used Kirk Cousins and Matt Ryan to a degree and Jimmy Garoppolo. You know how far that type of quarterback gets you, and you haven't been able to win the Super Bowl. It'd be different if Kyle Shanahan had won already with San Francisco and Jimmy Garoppolo and won that Super Bowl with Atlanta. Then I'd say, yeah, your system wins Super Bowls, go for it. But he hasn't been able to do that yet, and while the NFL is about winning games, it is most importantly about winning the game. It has the number one sporting event in the world, which is the Super Bowl, and the goal is to win that game. And Kyle Shanahan has not been able to win that game with that type of quarterback that he's used to using. I think he needs to switch it up and go with somebody like Justin Fields or Trey Lance, but the draft is a week away, so we will find out, and I do want to talk about a bunch of other draft narratives. We're in full draft mode here, as again, it is only about a week away, and then all this speculation, mock draft stuff can stop, and we can just focus on reactions and how the teams are actually built. I'm really excited for when after the draft happens to give you guys like some early predictions for records and stats for some of these NFL teams, and also talk more NBA, maybe even talk some baseball if you guys are interested in that, some MLB as well. So it's going to be a lot of fun coming up after the draft. But right now, some more draft talk, as there was a rumored, this is an interesting one. I don't want to say a report because it's not a report. This is something that was circulating on social media. It was somebody who claims, again, this is the internet, take this with a grain of salt, but it was circulating on Twitter, trending on Twitter at one point. And if it's going to be anything like this, it would be this. So somebody said that their father or somebody they know is a custodian at the Green Bay Packer facility and stumbled upon, while cleaning one of the offices, a draft file. And it just happens to have on the report with the Green Bay Packer logo on it and everything like that, a potential trade that could be happening or has been discussed between the New England Patriots and the Green Bay Packers. And the trade actually does make sense for both sides, so I don't want to completely dismiss this. And to be honest with you, the screenshot that was sent out, which obviously could be easily fabricated, and again, I'm not saying this is going to happen or this is based off any reporting at all, but there was, an office filled with Green Bay Packer things, signed balls, jerseys, things like that, and then there was that file sitting on the desk. So if any of these crazy Twitter stories that ended up being true were going to be true, I feel like it would be this one. Again, I don't think it's an idea. I don't know. I don't want to say, I want to rule it out. I don't want to say it is definitely happening, but it was trending on Twitter. And here was the trade that somebody apparently leaked, quote unquote, from the Green Bay Packer offices. Jordan Love would be sent to the New England Patriots in exchange for the 15th overall pick and I think 4th overall pick. So essentially, the Green Bay Packers would be trading up in a theory. I don't know if you would say the Green Bay Packers are trading up or New England's trading down. I think it's a little bit of both. Green Bay would move up from, I think, pick 29 to 15, while New England would move down pick 15 to pick 29, give Green Bay a 4th round pick, but also get Jordan Love in return. So Green Bay would move up to the 15th overall pick and add a 4th round pick for trading the quarterback they selected just a year ago, who hasn't even played a preseason snap. We've never seen any in-game footage of Jordan Love just yet, not even a pass, not even a kneel down, nothing. Zero of Jordan Love. He was inactive for a lot of games. And I think this could be a trade that could benefit both sides. And if it is true, I think it's very telling of what the New England Patriots plan to do on draft night. If this leaked trade proposal or agreement, I don't know, is true, to me it would be, again, it hasn't been announced yet. Obviously, Jordan Love is still a member of the Packers, and who knows if this screen grab is true or not. But if it is, to me, it would be a trade that has been necessarily already agreed upon, but given a circumstance. It appears to me that if this is true, that the Patriots do not want to trade up in this year's draft class. They have a lot of draft capital to trade up. They also have a lot of holes on that team, specifically on the offensive end. And it wouldn't surprise me if Bill Belichick, who knows the, value of draft picks maybe better than anybody knows, that he doesn't traditionally draft well, specifically on the offensive end. So the more draft picks you have, the more chances you have of actually hitting on a draft pick or something like that. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if Bill Belichick has already set in stone that, I don't want to trade out from 15. And again, Bill Belichick is the same guy as the general manager who about, a month or two, or really probably I would say a month out from the draft, pretty much says, go home, scouts, I got it, I'll take it from here, thank you for all your help, your help, but I'm going to do the draft. He solely does that. The draft is Bill Belichick's thing. So he knows the value of draft picks, he knows what to trade up, when to not trade up, and things like that, and he traditionally actually trades down and gets more draft picks. I know how important the quarterback position is, but I have a hard time believing that Bill Belichick will be trading up this year and giving up, especially with the price that Miami got just to move down to 6, what the rumored prices for, to trade up to 4 with Atlanta right now, which includes multiple firsts. I have a hard time believing New England, who's already an older team, specifically on the defensive end, not a young rebuilding team, they're a win-now, older team. Wouldn't surprise me at all if they don't want to trade up. So, if all 5 quarterbacks are gone by pick 15, that could be the clause that triggers this trade between the Packers and Patriots. It might have been agreed upon only if there's no quarterbacks that the Patriots will be taking at pick 15. So, if all 5 are gone, or if 4 out of the 5 are gone, and the Patriots specifically don't want one of the top 5 quarterbacks or something like that, then this trade happens potentially. And that would make a lot of sense for me, because again, I don't see why New England would be trading now for Jordan Love when they don't know how the draft is going to shake out. I'm assuming they probably like 1, 2, maybe even 3 quarterbacks. Again, there's the guys, Mac Jones, Justin Fields, and Trey Lance. I feel like the New England Patriots will have a chance to at least trade up for one of them. I don't think any of them will make it to pick 15. But I think they might have a chance to trade up for one of them. I'm not sure which one, though, whether it's Lance, Fields, or Jones. But I don't think they'll do that. So if there's none coming by pick 15, which again, the Patriots don't know for certain yet, which is why they maybe haven't done this trade that's been reportedly leaked. Again, take it with a grain of salt. But if this does happen, I think it could be a win-win for both sides. One is for Jordan Love. Jordan Love's expectations for his career are already set so high because of him backing up Aaron Rodgers, because of the way the Packers have sort of handled this whole Aaron Rodgers contract future negotiation. And again, it's being obviously compared to when Aaron Rodgers came into the league, because Aaron Rodgers came into the league the same way Jordan Love came into the league. Small town school, not the biggest name, went lower than people thought he would, elastic arm, weird throwing motion, sort of a special type of thrower, but sort of all raw, all talent, needed to sit for a year. Aaron obviously came in and set the world on fire. If Jordan Love doesn't do that for the Green Bay Packers, it'll be a huge mistake because Aaron Rodgers just won an MVP, yada yada this. We all know this. If Aaron Rodgers didn't do as well as he did in his career, the Packers would be bashed for moving off of Brett Favre when they did. But if Jordan Love pans out, then maybe Green Bay won't get bashed for moving off of Aaron Rodgers when they do. But if he sucks, then obviously that will happen. So maybe they just want to get admit that they've made a mistake and move out of the whole thing. I don't know if Green Bay necessarily anticipated Aaron was going to play this well, or if they were going to be this well. Obviously, the Packers last year, like I mentioned in my last segment, thought that Aaron Rodgers was freelancing a little bit too much, doing a little bit of his own thing, throwing the ball away, instead of running the Shanahan/LaFleur system that has been instilled in Green Bay. He did more of that this year, ran the system apparently to a T, and had the best year of his entire career since 2011. Maybe even the best statistical year he's ever had, period, from an efficiency standpoint and things like that. So, again, it makes sense why they would say, you know what, we thought last year that Aaron might have been heading for a cliff. He had a down year last year. We thought that, it wasn't a down year. They went to the NFC Championship game, but he wasn't doing the things we wanted him to do. Maybe a year or two down the line, he was going to hit a wall. We wanted to have a backup option. Now it's clear Aaron Rodgers is still in his prime. He's not appearing that he's going to hit a wall, and this system actually probably prolongs his career rather than shortens it. Again, this Shanahan system is a quick one-read system. Get the guy the ball that needs to get it and get it there quickly. It's not necessarily a system that's going to ask you to take a bunch of hits or hang on to the ball rather long either. So I think, if anything, this system probably extends Aaron Rodgers' career instead of limiting it. And maybe Green Bay wants to be a smart organization and say, hey, before Jordan Love's either good or bad, before we know if he's going to be a bust or if he's going to be the all-time guy, let's get him out of here. Let's fully commit to Aaron Rodgers, because that's all Aaron wants. I think Aaron really does want from the Green Bay Packers. I don't think he necessarily wants to leave, but he will leave. If they don't go all in on him, like Tampa Bay did with Tom Brady, then he might leave. And I think the number one way to go all in on a guy is to trade the backup. That's what the Patriots did with Tom Brady in the Jimmy Garoppolo situation. I think that's what they need to do. The Patriots make a ton of sense because they could get a former first-round pick who maybe they were interested in last year even a little bit, a guy who's uber talented, has that Mahomes elastic arm factor that everybody wants, everybody talks about. And again, I think Jordan Love is a really, really nice prospect. I am very, very high on him as a collegiate prospect. couldn't even be the backup last year, which is a little bit questionable. They went with Nick Boyle. So again, he got absolutely no snaps last year. But again, it was such a weird year for rookies and things like that. And if you're New England, you all really are giving up is a 4th round pick. You're staying in the 1st round. You are trading down. You're picking 29th, which is where Bill Belichick is used to picking anyway. So there's some comfort, there's some familiarity with that spot. All of your 2nd through 7th round picks would also still be top 15 in the round. So it's not like you'll be picking 29th at every round, just the 1st round. And again, that's traditionally not a problem for the Patriots, who usually pick down there anyway. And you would get a guy who could compete with Cam Newton. You didn't have to, automatically make him the starter or anything like that. He could sit for another year, even a whole year if he wanted to. Again, there were rumors that Jordan Love would have to sit more than 1 year, just like Aaron Rodgers did, and that's what he would always be doing if he was still in Green Bay, and if he is still in Green Bay, as of right now, he is obviously, and if this doesn't happen, he will be sitting next year, maybe even the year after that, and who knows for how much longer. But in New England, you have a chance to start and compete and play on a rookie contract. And if New England says, we need a new quarterback this year, we're not just riding with Cam Newton, we're bringing in a young guy to compete. Sam Darnold's obviously been moved off of, and all 5 quarterbacks, or at least all the ones that they like, are gone by pick 15. Jordan Love could make a lot of sense, and I think this trade is more realistic than people are giving it credit for. Again, the source of it, who knows? It's a crapshoot. It's draft season. Take it with a grain of salt. But if it is true, this trade would make a lot of sense, specifically if those quarterbacks are already gone by pick 15, and I think it could be a really, really fun and interesting storyline to watch. And I think it's a win-win for both sides. I think Jordan Love, for the sake of his career, should probably get out of Green Bay and get out of the expectations he's going to be held to, and really the whole him versus Aaron Rodgers dynamic and situation. And I think it would be better for the Packers, at least in the short term, to go all in on Aaron Rodgers, get him the roster that he wants, make sure he's happy. Maybe he'll take a pay cut or something if you go all in on him, and win a Super Bowl. Because you have a top 3 quarterback in the NFL right now, and when you have that level of QB play, every single year you need to be competing for a Super Bowl and making sure you're building the best roster and organization around that guy, because you know he can win you that game if you just get him there. And that's what Green Bay needs to do. Focus on getting to the Super Bowl so Aaron Rodgers can win it for you. Trading Jordan Love to maybe move up to pick 15, go after a guy like Jalen Waddle, Kadarius Toney, some other receivers. That could be really interesting to me. So for fun, I am going to have this trade actually happen in this mock draft next segment. So I hope you guys are going to have some fun with that. So Green Bay will actually be picking 15 in my mock draft after this, because again, it's fun to see if this trade would actually happen. Again, the sourcing, take it with a grain of salt. It was a guy who might know somebody within the Green Bay Packers organization. That screenshot looks pretty legit to me, but it's social media. Who actually knows? It's just fun to talk about and speculate. And I'm actually going to put it in the mock draft next segment, so that's going to be a lot of fun. The final thing I want to talk about in this segment is the Miami Dolphins, who are reportedly maybe trading out again. They hold the 6th pick currently. If you remember, they traded down from 3 to 12, then back up to 6. Allegedly for a top receiver or tight end in Kyle Pitts. But there's some rumors going around right now that if they find the right price, they won't hesitate to move down again and maybe collect some even more draft capital. At the end of the day, as long as the Dolphins, in my opinion, get one of the top 5 offensive, or top, 4 offensive targets in this year's draft class, I don't think if you're a Dolphins fan, you should care where they pick. As long as they get one of Chase, Waddle, Pitts, Devontae Smith, I think that's enough. I think you, as a high draft pick with a team that has a young quarterback in Tua Tagovailoa, the number one thing that he needs right now is more weapons, more receivers to throw to. As long as you get one of Pitts, Chase, Waddle, or Smith, I think the Miami Dolphins walk away as winners of the draft, at least with their pick. Not as the whole draft overall, but just I think that's a W for the exact pick. So if they want to trade back with 9 to Denver, or maybe even 12 with Philly again, or whatever it may be, 11 with the Giants, whoever it is, as long as they get one of those top 4 offensive weapons in this year's draft class, I think it's going to be a win for them, because that's what Tua Tagovailoa needs the most. All right, that's going to do it for this segment. On the other side of this short break, I'll be giving you that new mock draft that I have, the first 16 picks, of course. It'll be the last 16-pick mock draft. The next time after this mock draft in my next segment will be a full 32-pick mock draft for the draft that's obviously a week away. So we'll get into that 16-pick mock draft right after this short break.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
All right, and we are back here at the GSMC Sports Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. Again, I am your host, Alex Masfer. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode and to continue to listen to the show. If you are a returning listener, we really do appreciate you. I just finished giving you my spiel on really everything about that rumor that came out on Twitter about potential Jordan Love to New England Patriots trade. Again, I think it would benefit both sides. Jordan Love should really try to get out of the Green Bay situation. If he ever does play in Green Bay, the expectations are going to be set so high for him, maybe even impossibly high. But in New England, he gets not necessarily a fresh start. He never really got started in Green Bay, but just gets to sort of get a do-over and just have the expectations be set by Patriots and their fans and not sort of have to live up to the Aaron Rodgers hype or anything like that. I think it could work out for all sides. And New England gets to stay in the first round as well, moving down 14 spots and picking up the QB of the future is not a bad call at all if you're the New England Patriots. And I think it could benefit both sides because obviously the Packers don't need Jordan Love and they get to move up 14 spots and pick up a fourth-round pick for essentially free because they weren't going to play Jordan Love anytime soon and Aaron Rodgers is winning MVPs. So I think it's a win-win for both sides if it can get done. I really hope it gets done. I think it'd be really, really interesting. And speaking of draft trades and really just the draft overall, for the third segment of today's show, I will be giving you an updated 16-pick mock draft. Again, I just want to remind you how I do these. I do them based on what I believe is going to happen. It's based off prediction from research that I've done and sort of reports that we're hearing. This is a prediction. This isn't necessarily what I would do. This doesn't necessarily represent how I rank these players or anything like that. And again, this is my last 16-pick mock draft. My final mock draft, which will be next week, probably the day before the draft, probably a week from today when you're listening to this, will be a full 32-pick, all first-round mock draft right before the first round of the draft so I can predict to you guys what I think will happen on draft night and why. And that's probably when we'll have the clearest picture as well of where guys are being taken and why and things like that as well. So without that being said, let's get right into this new and improved 16-pick mock draft, really the first half of the first round. I'm going to try to fly through some of the picks that you guys have already heard before, and I'm sure you're hearing from every YouTube channel, podcast, website you're reading or listening or watching to. So let's just get right into it. First overall pick, we know what's going to happen. Trevor Lawrence. Urban Meyer doesn't come out of retirement unless it's for a special player. Lawrence is that special. Could end up being Justin Herbert plus, in my opinion. He's going number one overall, and we know what's going to happen. He's already donating to Jacksonville charities, and the fans are already engaging with him on Twitter and stuff like that. We've known for months it's going to happen. It'll officially become official a week from Thursday when you're listening to this. And it's going to be a lot of fun to see Trevor Lawrence in a Jaguar uniform for the next probably decade plus. I think he'll pan out and work out. So with the first overall pick, the Jaguars will be selecting Trevor Lawrence. With the second overall pick, the Jets will be selecting Zach Wilson. Now, when it comes to Zach Wilson, he reminds me actually a lot of Sam Darnold. He's not as big as Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold is a legitimate 6'4", built like a linebacker type of guy. They play similar styles, sort of this recklessness that maybe costs them some interceptions, but also has some really wow plays. What Sam Darnold doesn't have that Zach Wilson has is everything Sam can do throwing-wise. I think Wilson does a little bit better. It's probably a little bit more of an electric arm, a little bit more accurate, a little bit better decision-maker, things like that. And while he's not as big as Sam Darnold is height and weight-wise, he's a lot faster than Sam Darnold is, and he's a true, legitimate dual-threat quarterback. You can call run plays, read options, option plays in general for Zach Wilson. You can call those plays similar to how you call them for Kyler Murray. You can't do that with Sam Darnold. He's not that much of an athlete. So Sam's a plus athlete. I'd probably call Zach Wilson a plus or a plus athlete. That's what he has over Sam Darnold. But they're sort of similar players, and I think that's why Joe Douglas had such a tough decision on whether to move off of Sam Darnold or not, because they are really similar players, but the difference between their games is I think Zach's a little bit better. Also, you reset your financial timetable with your quarterback by taking Zach Wilson and moving off of Sam Darnold as well, because you have to pick up Sam's option next year and pay him by the following year, otherwise he's an unrestricted free agent. So it also resets your sort of financial timeline from the quarterback standpoint as well. Another good thing for the New York Jets, specifically when you have a new coaching regime coming in. So I think they won't hesitate to turn in that draft card for Zach Wilson at number 2. And number 3, I am going to say Mac Jones. At this point, the rumors are a little bit too loud. I thought last week after those Justin Fields reports were coming out, I thought that would be the end of Mac Jones to San Francisco rumors, but the rumors are only louder now, and after hearing some of those quotes and reading that article from The Athletic, I'm starting to think that the hype is just too strong to ignore for Mac Jones going to San Francisco. Again, I don't like it. I wouldn't do it if I were them. I would take Justin Fields or even Trey Lance. I wouldn't even hate that pick for them either, but it's appearing they're going to go Mac Jones. And again, they're not one of the teams that has to constantly send smoke screens to the media either. They have the third overall pick. They're going to get the guy they want no matter what anybody else does. So I really do believe that Mac Jones is going to be the pick because there's no reason for them to lie to the media. There's no reason for all these articles to come out if there wasn't something true. Do I think they're completely done with the process? No. I'm sure they're talking to everybody, talking to Fields more, Lance more, and even Mac Jones more. But as of right now, it's looking like Kyle Shanahan is going to be selecting Mac Jones with the third overall pick in this year's draft. And now the draft really starts here with the fourth overall pick and the Atlanta Falcons. Now, I personally do not believe the Atlanta Falcons will be picking a quarterback fourth overall. Would I do it? Now, it's tough because I think Kyle Pitts is a really, truly elite talent. I think he's the best player in this draft class, but Atlanta's offense is already so stacked, and I think Matt Ryan's only getting older. Now, that being said, I think we need to put some respect on Matt Ryan's name. Led the league in passing 4 straight years, yards, touchdowns. He's led it all before. And he hasn't really shown any sign of slowing down, and that offense is stacked. Adding Kyle Pitts would even help that even more. The reports coming out of Atlanta right now suggest that the general manager would like to select Justin Fields or Trey Lance, and the head coach Arthur Smith wants to get Kyle Pitts. I think the owner, Arthur Blank, will nod towards the coach here. He's a win-now guy. I think they select Kyle Pitts with the fourth overall pick. Now, there has been some rumors about them trading out, but recent reports indicate that the price for Atlanta's fourth overall pick is just so high for teams that apparently some GMs are even questioning if they truly want to move off the pick or they just want to get some Godfather offer that's too much to refuse. I don't know if Atlanta's actually actively selling that pick versus just listening to offers if some team wants to massively overpay for a quarterback. At the end of the day, I think they're going to go with the best player in this year's draft class, Kyle Pitts. Add that to an already elite offense with an elite offensive mind in Arthur Smith. And don't be surprised if the Atlanta Falcons are a top 3 offense in football next year. And if Kyle Pitts just easily wins Offensive Rookie of the Year, he could put up insane numbers in an Arthur Smith offense where he can't be double teamed because you have Julio Jones and, of course, Ridley all over the field as well. Just too many guys to defend for Atlanta, and I think Kyle Pitts would make that even harder for some defenses. And again, this is a pass-happy league. Matt Ryan loves to throw the ball and sling it all around. Arthur Smith loves to do the same thing. I think Kyle Pitts just makes too much sense for this offense, specifically when they don't have a dominant tight end one right now. Austin Hooper left last offseason. Hayden Hurst hasn't exactly filled that gap perfectly just yet. So I think they get Kyle Pitts, just a complete mismatch. Really a superhuman. He doesn't necessarily play like Jonnu Smith, which was obviously who they was in Tennessee with Arthur Smith as well. But just a super uber athletic freak tight end you can put anywhere. I think Arthur Smith would have an absolute field day with it from a play calling standpoint, and I think that's who the Atlanta Falcons select with the 4th overall pick. With the 5th overall pick, I do believe that the Cincinnati Bengals will end up listening to Joe Burrow and acknowledging his wishes and getting Jamar Chase, the wide receiver from LSU. I believe he's a special wide receiver talent. Again, I think this entire offensive weapon class is special, but Jamar Chase and Kyle Pitts in particular are 2 guys who I think are can't-miss special type of players that are going to be in the Hall of Fame one day. I think they're that good. They're also that young. They're both 20 or 21 respectively. Absolute athletic freaks, both of them, and I think Jamar Chase is a faster Anquan Bolden. He's a big, physical, tough receiver. They don't necessarily have that right now in Cincinnati. They have a lot of nice pieces. T. Higgins is a really nice piece. Boyd is a really nice piece. Both guys who are sort of rely on their route running and speed more than physicality, I would say. However, Jamar Chase does a little bit of everything, and he can be that physical, dominant, number 1 receiver. I don't know if T. Higgins or Boyd will ever develop into hey, I'm a top 7 receiver in this league. Throw it up to me no matter what, I got you. I don't think they're ever going to develop into those guys. Jamar Chase will be that guy, and I think they'll listen to Joe Burrow's wishes. He'll sign off on them not taking a tackle. They signed that kid from the Vikings in free agency and also have Jonah Williams still on the tackle position. Don't be surprised if they address offensive line still throughout the draft, maybe with the first pick in the second round, whenever they have it. But I think for the first round, they're going to end up going with a wide receiver, put more butts in the seats, help Joe Burrow out with even more weaponry, and reunite one of the greatest quarterback-wide receiver combinations we've ever seen in college football history. With the 6th pick, this is where the Miami Dolphins are, and I do believe that they will trade out. Now, if Kyle Pitts or Jamar Chase is at pick 6, I do not think Miami will trade out. I think Miami loves all 4 of the top offensive weapons in this class. Pitts, Chase, Waddle, Devontae Smith. I think they love all 4 of them. They want to find a way to get Pitts or Chase without giving up any capital. They're not going to trade up from the 6th overall pick. I think that's pretty much established. If one of Kyle Pitts or Jamar Chase makes it to pick 6, Miami will stay and select those guys, I can almost guarantee you. But in this version of my mock draft, and I think this will really happen, I think Pitts will go 4 to Atlanta, Chase will go 5 to Cincinnati, meaning those top 2 guys from Miami are already gone. They can trade back a couple of slots and still pick up either Jalen Waddle or Devonta Smith, whoever they prefer. And I think the team that would want to trade up with them is Denver Broncos at 9. They probably don't want to give up this much, and in a real world, they probably want to stay at 9 and not have to move up 3 picks for a quarterback. But I think there's going to be a lot of teams, maybe even New England, teams like Washington, Chicago, hell, maybe even Philadelphia. Teams are going to want to move up for a quarterback, specifically after Mac Jones officially gets taken 3rd and Justin Fields and Trey Lance are actually available and can actually be acquired because those picks could actually be traded for. So at the end of the day, I think they're going to have to move up, and I think John Elway's going to really, really fall in love, if he hasn't already, with Justin Fields. And I think at a division that has a lot of dynamic quarterback play with Justin Herbert and, of course, Patrick Mahomes, we've already heard rumors that John Gruden is aware of this and might move off of Derek Carr sooner rather than later. You need a dynamic quarterback. Drew Lock hasn't done enough to secure that position. I wouldn't cut him or anything like that, but I'd add Justin Fields, have those 2 guys compete. Justin Fields is a dual-threat dynamic guy. Put him on a talented Denver Broncos team with a defensive-minded head coach. I think that'd be a really, really nice situation for him. And I think this would work for Miami because they are only moving down 3 spots and essentially could still get one of Waddle or Devonta Smith, hopefully, which is who they are targeting, in my opinion, if Kyle Pitts and Jamar Chase are gone. And obviously, I don't think it would cost them a ton to move up from 9 to 6. If you're Denver, I think maybe a second-round pick would do it. So I think it makes a lot of sense. So with the 6th overall pick, I have our first trade, which is the Denver Broncos trading with the Miami Dolphins from 9 to 6 and selecting Justin Fields, the quarterback out of Ohio State. With the 7th overall pick, I have the Detroit Lions rushing to the podium to announce Penei Sewell as their new left tackle of the future to block for Jared Goff, who traditionally does terrible when there's not a good offensive line around him. They got to focus on the trenches. I know that receiving core is weak. Deal with it in the 2nd and 3rd round when there's even more talent, and that's a deeper class than the tackle classes. Take Penei Sewell. Don't look back if you're Detroit, if he actually does fall past Cincinnati at 5. Since Penei Sewell is taken at 7 by the Lions in my mock draft, I think that's the guy that's number 1 on the board for Carolina, and I really do see them trading out of this spot. There's another rumor, of course, by Ian Rappaport, the report coming out that Carolina might be trading back, and I think this is when Washington makes their move. They pick, I believe, at 19 or 20th. They find a team in Carolina that just got their QB of the future, can trade down, get some additional draft picks to help him get some wide receivers, some running backs, offensive linemen, whatever they need in the 2nd or 3rd round. They stay in the 1st round by trading down about 11 to 12 spots. And the Washington football team, which has been rumored to be the team that is absolutely head over heels in love with Trey Lance, give up a ton of draft capital, move up into the top 10, and with the 8th overall pick, select Trey Lance. And in my opinion, that makes it 5 quarterbacks selected in the top 10 of this year's draft class, the first time in the NFL's really history and draft era. I think it's happening this year, and I think Washington is that final team to trade up past a team like New England at 15, go into the top 8, overpay a little bit to outbid a team like New England, and select Trey Lance with the 8th overall pick. With the 8th overall pick, I have the Washington football team trading up with the Carolina Panthers and selecting Trey Lance. With the 9th overall pick, this is where we're back to Miami now. And of course, it has worked out for them in this mock draft. Jalen Waddle, Devonta Smith are still available. I'm going to lean with the more recent reports, and also Devonta Smith's weight has been a question and a concern. The AFC East is a tough physical division with teams like Buffalo. The Jets now are going to be physical with Robert Saleh, defensive coach, and of course the Patriots are with Bill Belichick. I think they go with a guy who extends with the speed and is a horizontal spreader of the field, while Will Fuller, who they just signed, is more of a vertical guy. I think Jalen Waddle, who I believe they will pick at 9, is a guy who can spread the field horizontally with his speed and be a Tyreek Hill 2.0. And I think he's going to be really, really work out, fits to his play style to a T with anticipation, getting open fast. Pure speed guys. Tua does his best when there's speed guys around him. Just load up if you're the Miami Dolphins, and I think they will do it with the 9th overall pick. I believe they select Jalen Waddle. And for the next couple picks, I'm going to try to rapid fire through them a little bit. I did a lot of explaining in that top 10. With the 10th overall pick, a lot of this, 10 through 16, is really, really similar to my other mock drafts. I think This time I'm going to say the Cowboys select Patrick Surtain. He's not my favorite corner. J.C. Horn is, and I had the Cowboys selecting him in my last draft, but the consensus seems to be that other NFL teams have Patrick Surtain as that number one corner, and I think the Cowboys will go defense no matter what. I think they take Surtain with the 10th pick. I think the 11th overall pick, which is what the Giants have, is the lowest that Devontae Smith will fall. There's been some reports that they're really, really interested in him if he actually makes it all the way to 11. I think he will in this mock draft. I think he slips a little bit because of his frame. I don't think the Giants will hesitate in turning in that draft card. I think he goes 11th to the Giants. Devontae Smith, the receiver out of Alabama. With the 12th pick, I think the Eagles will select my personal favorite cornerback in this draft, J.C. Horn. They need defense. They really need everything. J.C. Horn's essentially best player available, in my opinion. I think the Eagles will take him. With the 13th overall pick, I think the Chargers really, really benefit from that offensive tackle slide and select Rashawn Slater, who is really a top 10, maybe even top 7 talent in this draft class, but because of the need for quarterbacks, wide receivers, and corners, he goes all the way to pick 13, and that is a home run draft pick by the Chargers, if that can really happen for Justin Herbert. 14th pick is the Minnesota Vikings. Just like in my other mock drafts, I still have them selecting Kwity Paye, the edge out of Michigan. I think he's the best all-around edge defender in a combination of talent for the future and NFL readiness, as the Vikings are a win-now team. So I believe they select him at 14. With the 15th pick, since all 5 of those quarterbacks are gone, I do have that trade that's been reportedly leaked on Twitter. I think the Packers will trade Jordan Love to the Patriots. They go all the way up to pick 15, and I think they select Kadarius Toney, the receiver out of Florida. Reminds me a lot of Brandon Ayuk last year. Fast, arms like a tree trunk, just incredible wingspan, twitchiness, all of the factors you want in a speed, shifty, sort of do-it-all, sort of Swiss Army knife type receiver. Reminds me a lot of a taller Curtis Samuel. I think in a Matt LaFleur system with Kyle Shanahan sort of schemes already built in, it's going to be electric. If they could trade Jordan Love and pick up to Kadarius Toney, you do that in a heartbeat, in my opinion, if you're the Green Bay Packers. So that's what I have them doing after trading up with New England to the 15th overall pick. And with the final pick in this second to last mock draft I'll be doing, that's the 16th overall pick, the Arizona Cardinals. I think they'll go offensive line and select Elijah Vera Tucker, the guard out of USC. They got enough weapons for Kyler Murray. I know there's a lot of rumors they could be going after receiver, but if Waddle, Smith, and Toney are all gone, I think they'll wait until the second round and maybe go after a guy like Rondale Moore, Elijah Moore, Teron Wallace. There's so many receivers in this year's draft class. They don't need a running back anymore. I could have considered Najee Harris here. They obviously signed James Conner, so they don't need that anymore. I think they go offensive guard here with Elijah Vera Tucker, the interior offensive lineman out of USC. All right, that's going to do it for this segment and this mock draft. I hope you guys enjoyed that. We're going to take one final short break here, and on the other side of this final short break, I will quickly get to some of the major NBA storylines, including why I personally don't believe that Brooklyn is going to win a championship this year. We'll get into all that great stuff right after this final short break.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red-hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's gsmcpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
And we are back here at the GSMC Sports Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network for today's final segment of the absolutely packed show that we gave you guys today. And for that final segment, I do want to talk about some basketball stuff. I just finished giving you my mock draft, those first 16 picks. Again, I think there's going to be a lot of movement. I think teams like Denver and Washington could trade up. Who knows, maybe that Green Bay Packer, New England Patriot trade happens. We're about a week away. I cannot wait for it. Like I said, I want to transition now to a little bit of some NBA talk for the rest of today's show, and specifically Brooklyn. I know in my last episode I said I don't trust what Brooklyn's doing defensively, but I think I found a bigger concern than defense, and I think it might not even let Brooklyn win multiple playoff series. If you remember last year with the Los Angeles Clippers, we all wanted to see Clippers-Lakers, and we all wanted to see them get to at least the Western Conference Finals. But one of the biggest reasons why that they didn't make it there, and actually Doc Rivers is one of the biggest guys who talked about this after being let go by the Clippers in recent interviews and podcast episodes and things like that, is the Clippers had no chemistry. Those guys never really played together. Paul George was always hurt, or Kawhi was always resting or hurt, or something like that. And they hadn't played that many games together. By the end of the season, I think they had only played about 20 games heading into that playoff series against some teams, and obviously they lost to Denver in the end. Now I want to take you to the Brooklyn Nets. Their trio, right, has played in total of 7 games together. James Harden is now out for potentially the remainder of the regular season. KD is now out for at least a week or two because of I think, is it a quad injury or he bumped a contusion on his leg or some sort. And Kyrie is now the only one healthy and playing consistently. That will mean that if James Harden is out for the remainder of these regular season, which is about 2 weeks, 3 weeks? Actually, no, it's about 20 games. So it could be about 4 weeks, actually. Some teams it might stretch up to 4 or 5 weeks, but it could be 3 for some. Because of this, James Harden will have played more games for the Houston Rockets this year than games he played with KD and Kyrie both on the court together. 7 total games of chemistry between those guys. Sure, they practice a lot together. Sure, they know each other, whatever. But are we sure we're not falling into the same trap we fell into with the Clippers last year, which was this team is really talented. They're really good at something. They're really good at defense, right? This Brooklyn Nets team is really good at offense. They don't have the defense that the Clippers had. They're a deep team. They have all these veterans. They won the buyout market. They made the crazy additions in the offseason, things like that. They have a very, I don't want to say famous head coach. Every NBA head coach I would say is famous, but one of those guys that you can easily identify, right? You know who Steve Nash is. You know who Doc Rivers is. One of the more vocal head coaches, I should say. One of those guys that is on TV constantly, things like that. Better at the microphone than some other coaches. Steve Nash, former NBA player. Again, also the Clippers, the little brother in that city, right? That might have played a toll on them mentally, right? The pressure on them was so high, and they're the team that never is ever at that level. The Clippers had never even really been that far before. The Nets had never really been this far before, right? They've never been the best team in the NBA, at least for not a long time. So I'm no longer worried that Brooklyn won't make it to they won't win a championship. Before I would say, yeah, but they can outscore everybody. They'll still make it to the championship. They'll just lose the Lakers or somebody in the West in 6 or 7 games. Now I'm not even sure the Brooklyn Nets can win multiple playoff series. In the second round, they eventually are going to have to face, let me just read you some of these teams in the Eastern Conference this year that are looking really, really scary if you're Brooklyn, right? Eventually, Brooklyn, if you want to go to a championship, you have to beat the Milwaukee Bucks, the Boston Celtics, the Miami Heat. The New York Knicks look really, really good this year, folks. I'm not saying they would beat Brooklyn in a final. I'm not saying they would beat Brooklyn in a 7-game series. But if they even took them to 6, that's tiring for the next series where Brooklyn might have to play a Milwaukee, a Philadelphia, a Boston, a Miami. Those types of teams that are battle-tested, have veterans on them who have made deep playoff runs before, and specifically the Bucks, Heat, 76ers, and I would even maybe include the Celtics to some degree, play defense, and they play physical. Specifically, the 76ers, Bucks, and Heat are a physical basketball team. All of them have wings to throw at you and are built to beat teams like the Brooklyn Nets. So combine that with Brooklyn's lack of defense, not great head coaching experience in Steve Nash. Mike D'Antoni's the lead assistant there. We know he doesn't traditionally do great in the playoffs. And now James Harden, Kevin Durant, and Kyrie Irving, it's looking like we'll only play 7 total games together. I'm not sure the Brooklyn Nets are even going to make it out of the second round, let alone make it out of the East, let alone win a championship. I think there are just too many teams, too many factors that are going to propel them to making an unfortunate early round exit. Because I do agree, a lot of us this NBA season, which hasn't been the greatest NBA season, there's been a ton of injuries this year. The scheduling this year with the NBA might have been a mistake. Guys are getting hurt by the day. It seems like, and not just guys, right? Like superstar guys, day in, day out, are dealing with injuries. AD and LeBron have been out almost the whole year. KD has barely played. Now Harden's out. Kyrie wasn't playing at the beginning of the season. Jimmy Butler got COVID, missed a large part of the year. The Celtics have been dealing with COVID and injuries all year as well. Not many teams have been caught a break health-wise. I don't think the shortened offseason and the crazy compact schedule to fit it in with a certain time period, so the finals are still in June and things like that. Not sure it was the smartest idea by the NBA. Again, it'll still be entertaining come playoff time, and there's been some moments this NBA season. But with all the injuries, don't be surprised if a team that has been healthy all year, like the Utah Jazz, like the 76ers, like the Milwaukee Bucks, find a way to get into the finals because they're just healthier and they have the chemistry. Again, teams like the Heat and Celtics, who have a roster that have maybe played together last year, might do better in the playoffs than some of these other teams that have a lot of new additions who just haven't played with each other that long. Again, James Harden, this is a crazy stat to think about. This year, James Harden has played more games with the Houston Rockets than he's played with KD and Kyrie. That is absolutely crazy to me, and I don't know how they can win a championship off of 7 games played together in the regular season, and a lot of them were just complete and utter blowouts. Now, they've all played individually, respectively, and they're all superstars, so when they come back, it's not like they're going to be rusty or anything like that. But again, Kawhi and PG weren't rusty. They just didn't play with each other a whole lot, and that roster didn't really know how to compete with each other for 7 games and win 4 out of 7. I don't know if Brooklyn will have that same, mentality that Miami and Philadelphia and Boston are going to have in a series when they know how to play off each other so well, and they have a relationship with their coach, and the system has been run for a couple of years. Brooklyn's still in year 1 of this thing. I'm not saying that this trio will never win a championship or anything like that. This is obviously not just a one-year thing for Brooklyn. But this year, in particular, with the lack of experience and chemistry that those 3 guys have in particular, it wouldn't surprise me at all if they get bounced, not just in the conference finals, but earlier. It wouldn't surprise me if a team like Miami or a team like Boston, I think they're the 6th and 7th seed respectively in the Eastern Conference right now, because they've dealt with COVID and injuries and had an up and down year and have been really hurt by the shortened season. Or the shortened off season. It wouldn't surprise me if one of those 2 guys or one of those 2 teams absolutely took Brooklyn out in the second round of the NBA playoffs. I think it's going to be an absolutely fascinating playoffs to watch. And some good news on the injury side also came in. Anthony Davis is looking to make his return to the lineup this Thursday. They're currently sitting at 5th in the Western Conference. I don't know if they can catch up to a top 3 seed in the West, but if I'm the Lakers, my number 1 goal is to at least finish top 4 in the Western Conference this season. And Anthony Davis needs to hopefully play the rest of the year for them to do that. They're a couple of games behind. They're 2.5 games behind the Denver Nuggets right now. But if you're the Lakers, you don't want to face Denver in a round 1 series in Denver. I'm not saying they wouldn't win. I think LeBron and AD would take care of business like they did in the Western Conference Finals and beat them in 5 or 6. But still, you never want to play in Denver, be tired, risk injury, all that stuff. You want, specifically in these playoffs with guys who are banged up, for these series to be quick and as painless as possible. Going to Denver and maybe having to play a 6-game series in the first round before having to play really tough defensive teams like Utah and the Clippers is not ideal for the Los Angeles Lakers. But again, they are 5 games back of the 3-seeded Clippers, 6.5 games back from the Suns, and 8 games back from the Jazz. I don't think they're going to catch the top 3 in the Western Conference, but I do believe the Lakers should make it a priority to make sure that they can be a top 4 seed in the Western Conference so they have some home court advantage, at least in the first round, because Denver is a really, really tough place to play, and they're a really good defensive team, and Nikola Jokic might be an MVP candidate too, so you don't want to play him at his place 4 out of 7 games or something like that. All right, that's going to do it for today's episode of the GSMC Sports Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. Before I let you go, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, leave us a 5-star review, and follow us on all social media platforms, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Again, I have been your host, Alex Masferrer. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode, and I will see you all in the next one.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.